Special at Empower Abilities, and this is Miss Afton Harper. I don't exactly know her exact title, but she's something very special. Special projects, and what's your title here?
Projects coordinator.
Projects coordinator. Okay. So before we begin, restrooms are
Will you open the window?
and we are a scent-free facility, so if you need to use the restroom to freshen up, please be mindful of that. No perfumes or cologne. Our closest emergency exit is going to be through the west doors. If a tornado siren goes off, which has happened a few weeks ago, we will be heading to a safe location.
Will you open the windows, please?
For those who are unable, we'll go into the apartment in the middle. There's an attendance sheet in circulation, and photos may be taken. There is a checkbox on the form if you would not want your photo taken for some reason. And convoy distribution is available along with current flyers for upcoming events. So if you sign up for convoy today, we'll make sure you get that as well. Ms. Afton, would you mind?
Yeah, I can go ahead and.
Thank you. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is a boundary and what is not a boundary. So a lot of times we think, we think that boundary is a wall, and boundaries are not a wall because walls are built brick by.
I can't hear y'all.
What did you say, Miss Patty?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. Is this better?
Little bit.
Okay. So walls are built brick by brick with internal vows of never allowing people or things to hurt us again. So for example, if I was hurt by a parent, that's a brick that I put in my wall. If I was hurt by a sibling, that's a brick I put in my wall.
There we go.
All of those things can happen over time. And if you can see in this picture that walls can harden over time and we can forget what it feels like to gain access to that space. And I had, some trauma in my life. And so I created this wall, which made it very hard to connect with others until I learned what a boundary really was. Would you mind, Ms. Afton? Actually, a boundary is a friendly fence. Fences have gates that teach people where the door is. And to be healthy, you have to set boundaries and explain to people when entering your yard that they need your permission and must come through your gate. So picture your fence at your house, in between you and your neighbors. You can stand there and you can have a conversation with your neighbor through the fence line, but they have to come around. It'd be really weird if you just let your neighbor hop the fence, climb over the gate while you're talking to them. But a lot of times we let people do that to us, okay? A lack of boundary can cause chaos, complete disorder and confusion, where there can be difficulty in making sound decisions. There can be changes in your sleeping and eating habits and fewer positive relationships. So this is actually a picture of an illegal dump in someone's yard. Okay, this is chaos when things are illegally dumped in a yard, and chaos happens when things are dumped into our space without our permission. Okay. So some of the reasons why we may lack boundaries. We may have grown up in a home with no boundaries. Okay, were your parents or your guardians too permissive? Didn't really care what you did. I had a season of my life like that. Okay, there were no limits. Or growing up in a home with unquestioning obedience because I said so. When my children ask me, how can we have to do this? I really try not to say because I said so. I want to teach them over time to make right decisions. Okay, or growing up in a home where there was some sort of trauma. Maybe there was a home where there was addiction issues or a parent not present, either physically or emotionally, okay? And trauma is different for everybody. So my brother and I both grew up, my brother and I both grew up in the same home, same set of circumstances. Our parents divorced each other, but it was traumatic for me, but not for him. So trauma depends on how you react to a certain situation. Okay, we've had a few people come in, so I want to just, restrooms are through the door over to the east. Emergency exit is over here on the west. Yeah, there's a sign up sheet if you want to pass that around. I think we have more of those on the table, just not folded yet.
Okay.
You're doing this live, right?
Yep, sorry.
So what is the importance of setting a healthy boundary? Okay? To practice self-care and self-respect. That's one thing. Number two, to be able to communicate your needs in a relationship. And number three, to make time and space for positive interactions. Number four, to set limits in a healthy way. Okay? Do you guys have examples of any of these things what's one way that you can practice self-care and self-respect by practicing a healthy boundary? So one way for me is practicing self-care and self-respect is my mom said to me just this morning, when my mom doesn't drive, she says, I really need to get to the eye doctor before they won't let me get my glasses. And I said, well, what is stopping you? She said, well, I don't have a ride. I said, have you called the Oats Bus? She said, well, I have to wait for him. I said, well, you're still waiting for a ride. So maybe that will be, because I need to be able to manage my own time. You know, I do help my mother in the things that my mother needs help with, but then there are things that she can do on her own as well. So for me, that's a boundary. All right, a fence hopper. Okay, we just talked about that. Often we allow others to hop our fence. So it would be really weird if your next door neighbor climbed over your fence and planted flowers in your yard. Or used your barbecue grill. But we let people do that all the time with our boundaries. Okay? Sometimes we're so overwhelmed by our own yard that we hop the fence to take care of someone else's garden. Okay? Are you ever busy in your own head? You're like, oh, I really need to address this. But instead, you want to help a friend out. You want to help them with this instead of taking care of your own needs. This is a codependency tendency. So enabling, rescuing, trying to fix other people's problems. Also unsure of who you are, what you like, to believe, what you need, and what you feel can be codependent tendencies as well.
Oh, Cassie raised her hand on Zoom. Cassie, did you have a question?
I have a quick question. Sorry to ask, but is there another Zoom after this at 1:30?
I don't think so. I think it's just this one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there are 6 different areas of boundaries. So the first one is personal boundaries. So this is having to do with personal space and physical touch. There are also intellectual boundaries. This refers to our thoughts and our ideas. There are emotional boundaries. These deal with feelings. There are time boundaries, how a person uses one's time. Material boundaries refer to money and possessions. And sexual boundaries. This is the emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects of sexuality. So we're going to do a little hands-on.
Sorry.
Oh, that
There we
sounds
go.
fun.
So what we've done, this is our building our fences activity. All right, go ahead and sign.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've created fences. All right, so we've created fences that look like this that y'all can create on your own. Okay, so there's these 6 boundaries and then labels that say my boundaries. Mine is on the left. So you put your boundaries in the order of importance to you. So for example, time is one of the boundaries that I'm working really hard on. Those. And it's kind of cheap for you guys, okay? And Ms. Afton's is on the other side, and she has listed hers in the order that she deems to be necessary right now. Let me get you some glue.
And this is Afton. My recommendation also, as you're putting your sticks together, is going from left to right when you're laying them out, kind of like the posts of the fence. And then, once you got those laid out in your order of importance, whatever that may be for you, you then lay down the top, like, supporting stick. And with dots of glue on the top, and then dots of glue on the bottom. And you just need to put teensy tiny pea-sized dots of glue. Cause they, a little goes a long way with the popsicle sticks.
Exactly. Thank you. So, once you use the glue, if you could pass it on to, the next person, but I'll talk about each one of these types of boundaries while you're working on this. This is Anna again. So, intellectual boundaries. Intellectual boundaries include respect for others' ideas and an awareness of what is appropriate topics of conversation. Those are boundaries. Okay, so the question to ask when you're considering this boundary, for example, is do we talk about politics or do we talk about the weather? There are certain situations where politics is acceptable. Sometimes it's just the weather, okay? A violation example would be someone dismisses another person's opinion. Or someone belittles another person's opinion. Those are all boundary violations of the intellectual boundaries, okay? Opinions are all different, so we're all entitled to them. Another type of boundary is the physical boundaries. This includes what's appropriate in different situations and in different types of relationships. So the question to ask is, do I hug them or do I shake their hand? So meeting a stranger at Walmart, probably appropriate to shake their hand. Meeting your grandma, probably appropriate for a hug, okay? So a violation of this would be someone touches you when you don't want them to. That is an absolute violation, okay? Or someone rummages through your bedroom. They invade your personal space, or they rummage through your notebook or your things. Those are violation examples. You have the right to say, I don't appreciate that. I'm not okay with this. Emotional boundaries. These include limitations on when to share and when not to share personal information. So the question to ask here would be, has our relationship developed enough for me to share that information with you yet? Okay. Like, for example, when I first met Afton, she didn't know all about my life. Okay, I'm not going to tell her where I come from or the things I've been through in my life. I'm going to slowly get to know her over time. But now we're very close. So I feel very comfortable in sharing a lot of information with her. But that's a relationship that's built because it's based on emotion. A violation example would be someone criticizes another person's feelings. Okay, have you ever been somewhere and someone has said to you or someone else, don't feel that way? Okay, that's a boundary violation. You can feel whatever way you want to. Okay. Now, how you react to that feeling or take action on that feeling is a different conversation. But your feelings are valid because they're your feelings. Okay. Or someone belittles or invalidates another person's feelings. That's another violation. Time boundaries. This is the one that I'm working on the most. Okay, I have 6 children and parents that I take care of. So my time, I've always given away. So now I'm trying to get that back. So time boundaries include setting aside a certain time for each facet of your life. My work time, my relationships, my hobbies, etc. My husband runs marathons, so let me tell you, that takes a lot of time. Questions to ask. Is there time in my schedule to add this task? Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the things you have to do? Just feel like you're not going to get it done? Okay. Is there something else you can take off of your plate for the moment to add that other one on? Because when you say yes to something, you are saying no to something. So a violation example of this is someone demands too much of another person's time. Or someone adds more tasks to your plate because they don't know how to manage their own time. Those are all time boundary violations. Material boundaries. This can include setting limits on what you will share and with whom. Question to ask. Should I lend my car to this stranger? To my family member? There was a season in my life I would rather lend it to a stranger than to my brother. Okay? So it just kind of depends. What are you willing to share and with whom? If you guys are finished with purging my cast watch. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Violation example for this is someone steals or damages another person's possessions. That's violating a boundary. Or someone pressures someone else to give or lend them their possessions. That could be peer pressure. Peer pressure is often a boundary violation. You have the freedom to say no, and those around you should respect that freedom. And lastly, these sexual boundaries. So this is included a mutual understanding of limitations and desires between the sexual partners. Okay, you both have to agree upon it. The question to ask is this desire something my partner and I have agreed upon? Violation examples could be this: there is unwanted sexual touching or pressure to engage in a sexual act, or leering or sexual comments can be a violation. So you have the right to go into Walmart without someone staring at you like you're an object. That's a boundary violation, and you can say, I don't appreciate that. Okay. How are you guys doing on your fences? Was it hard to decide what you were going to concentrate on? Yeah. All right, now that we've talked about the six types of boundaries, there's also these three different kinds of boundaries, okay? Rigid, porous, and healthy. So rigid is going to be really strict. Porous, you can picture a sponge, and healthy is what we're striving for. Rigid, this is that wall we talked about, okay? This type of boundary avoids intimacy in close relationships. Okay, this is the type of person who might be unlikely to ask for help. Okay, very protective of personal information, as we should be in most situations. Okay, it just kind of depends on how you're, my example with Afton was, right now, I would be happy to tell her the names of my children and where I live. If she would have asked me in hour 2 of me meeting her, I would have thought she was there, because that's not appropriate. Another type, can you go back? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
This type of person may seem detached, even with romantic partners, and they keep others at a distance to avoid possibility of rejection, perhaps, okay? Right, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Right. Porous. I mean, our fences might look like that. I've had fences that look like that. Overshare personal information. Difficulty saying no to the requests of others. Okay. Sometimes you're over involved with other people's problems. Or you depend on the opinion of others. I had a season in my life that I didn't even know if the outfit I was wearing looked good because I needed to have the opinion of others. Accepting of abuse or disrespect. And fears rejection if they do not comply with others. Those are examples of porous boundaries. But in healthy boundaries, we're going to value our own opinion. I might not match, but I like it and I'm okay with it. That sort of thing. I don't compromise my value for other people. If something is wrong, something is wrong. I share personal information in an appropriate way. Okay, not overshare, undershare. I know my own personal wants and needs and can communicate them. There was a time in my life I was invited to go bowling. I didn't even know if I loved bowling or not. I had lived a type of life where my likes and dislikes were chosen for me. And so being able to say, Yeah, I think I'd like to try that. It's very difficult for me. I could tell you all the things I didn't like, but I didn't know what I did like. That took a lot for me to learn. Also, healthy boundaries will allow you to accept when others say no to you. Okay, so if I ask Afton, I say, hey, Afton, you want to go get a pineapple whip? And she says, no, not today. It would be inappropriate for me to guilt trip her into going. Okay, that's a boundary she had chosen for herself, and I need to respect that as well. And sometimes, if you notice this, fence, sometimes we can be very good at setting boundaries in certain areas of our lives and not so good at setting and keeping boundaries in other areas of our lives. Our yard begins to look like this, with a strong fence in parts of it, but with a gaping hole in others. You guys feel like that with your boundaries sometimes? Yeah? All right. So how can we focus on our boundaries? So let's remember 3 types of government. There's 3 types of government in the United States. There's also 3 types of government for ourselves. Number 1 is self-government. Number 2 is family government, and number 3 is social government. So an example of this would be, would you mind?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Self-government. This is where we're taking responsibility of our own thoughts, our own attitudes, and our own behaviors. Okay? We're focusing on our own tasks to be completed and not someone else's. We're understanding that we are responsible for our own basic needs to be met. And understand that other people should not have to remind us to take ownership of our lives. So for example, each member of the family is getting ready in the morning without someone reminding someone else to do so. Okay, we all need help sometimes, and I'm not talking about those times. I'm talking about, in general, you're responsible for yourself. You get up, you comb your hair. You get up, you eat breakfast, you brush your teeth. You do the things that you can do for yourself. I could spend all my time hollering at my husband to do those things, but then he'd be ready and I wouldn't. Go ahead. So that brings us to family government. Understanding that our individual responsibilities work interdependently with others in a close familial circle. Each one of us practices self-government. There will be more time for joint ventures in the family. Focusing on our own tasks allows us to work alongside of others and build a level of trust. So for example, if each member of a family gets dressed and ready, then they can leave the house together at an agreed upon time and no one else is waiting for anyone else. Does that make sense? So self-government first and then family government comes next. And then what's next, Ms. Afton? Social government. So much like family government, our individual responsibilities work interdependently with others in a larger group with more responsibility. So in our example, no one at the movie theater is calling ticket holders and making sure they're ready on time. That doesn't happen. Yet we do that. Hey, are you ready? Hollering up the stairs at somebody. Hey, come on, let's go. So for example, the movie at the theater starts at a designated time and the ticket holders all come together to view it. Okay. So here are the 10 laws of boundaries. Number 1, sowing and reaping. Our actions have consequences. Someone will bear them. Don't interrupt this law by regularly bailing others out. Okay. Number 2, responsibility. We are responsible to and not for each other. We are to love one another, not be one another. Okay, I can carry your backpack. I can help you move your boulder, but I'm not going to carry your backpack. Okay, does that make sense? Like I'll help you with tasks, but you need to be present. Okay, power. We do not have power over other people. We hardly have enough power over ourselves. Respect. If we wish our boundaries to be respected, we must respect those of others. But with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Number 5, motivation. We must be free to say no before we can wholeheartedly say yes. Acts of love are worthless if we don't feel we have a choice.
Sorry, it looked like somebody was trying to use the Zoom link. Okay, I am going to click forward. There we go.
Number 6, evaluation. We need to evaluate the effects our boundaries cause. Hurt and harm are not the same. Not the same at all. Okay? Pain may eventually lead to growth. Okay, so if my adult children and my adult daughter says, Mom, can I borrow some money for rent? I can tell her, no, you're going to have to work a few extra hours. That might hurt her. She may be upset, but I'm not harming her. She's learning that she has to take responsibility for her actions, okay? Proactivity. Boundaries must express what you stand for, not just what you are against. Solve problems on the basis of your values, wants, and needs. Number 8, envy. We will never get what we want if we focus on what others have. Envy keeps us empty and fulfilled. Number 9, activity. We need to take the initiative to solve our problems. Don't wait for someone else or your spouse to take the first steps. Number 10, exposure. Boundaries must be communicated, otherwise they are invisible to others. Okay, how are you going to know what my boundaries are if I don't express them? And just because I express boundaries doesn't mean I have to be mean about it. So that's adapted from Dr. Henry Cloud's book, Boundaries, those 10 laws. So these are some boundary setting guidelines, and we do have a handout that will pass out for you guys too as well. So the guidelines are, number 1, consider boundaries that you may need. Okay, think about what's going on in your life. Okay, are there some boundaries that you need to put into place? All right, can you think about that for a moment? Number 2, set boundaries with consequences. Okay, how good would a boundary be if we don't enforce them? Number 3, don't set boundaries unless you are willing to follow through with the consequences. Did your mom ever say to you at one point in time, you're grounded for life? I've been grounded for life, I don't know how many times. That is not a consequence that you can enforce. So when you set consequences for your boundaries, make them reasonable, okay? And number 4, don't keep changing the boundaries. If we're thinking of our boundaries and as a picket fence, how often do we dig up our fence and move it? We don't do that, okay? Now, boundaries can be flexible for different seasons in your life, okay? But don't change them every other hour. And number 5, keep boundaries simple and direct. For example, I like it when, or I'm uncomfortable with. Okay, those are great ways to start conversations. You know, I've told my husband, I like it when you give me flowers. Do that. I don't like it when the lawn is not mowed and I feel as if I have to do it. Those things. I'm not being mean, I'm being honest. Okay. So as a practice, maybe make a list of people in your life that you may need to set boundaries. Okay. As you're thinking about this going forward. Perhaps make a list of behaviors that you will and will not accept from others, and then again, set a consequence. Make a list of things you like and don't like. Like I said, that was hard for me. Practice saying no to the bad in your life, and practice saying yes to the good in your life. Work on staying in your own yards as opposed to doing someone else's yard work. Okay? One thing that really helped me was I had a friend that I would, like, even with Afton right now. Okay? Afton knows that I'm trying to make healthier eating choices, healthier physical choices, walking more. I have let her know so that she can help me and support me in the boundaries that I've set for myself. And oftentimes we need to set boundaries for ourselves. I think we forget that. We are just as important and we violate our own boundaries more often than I think we care to admit. Okay? So practice with someone who you respect and who respects you. this is the choice that I'm making. I'd like to practice saying no to this. Please help me practice saying yes, okay? And here's just a few things. This is on the back of your handout. And sometimes I used to write them in lipstick on the mirror, you know, just whatever, just to remember. Walls keep everybody out, but boundaries teach people where the door is. I'm not keeping you out. You can still have access to me, but it has to be the right way. Okay? And I am not responsible for how people respond to my boundaries. I am responsible for setting and honoring my boundaries. If my relationships end because I set boundaries, it is a sign that the foundation was cracked. In healthy relationships, I can set boundaries without fear of retaliation, cutoffs, or manipulation. Okay? I'm responsible for setting my boundaries. How you react to them, that's something that you're going to have to deal with. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to set a boundary so that I can be healthy. Okay? Because setting boundaries doesn't make me mean. I can set limits and expectations for my life and still be nice. You don't have to be a jerk. I would never scream at Afton and go, I'm never whip, which is actually a lie. But I mean, I wouldn't scream at her. It would be, no, thank you, I'm trying to make healthier choices. And also, one more.
Sorry.
Considering your wishes doesn't mean I have to do what you think I should do. My feelings and thoughts are part of the decision. And if you don't like that, that does belong to you. I think oftentimes we take people's feelings and put it on our plate in a place that we really don't have space for. All right. Do you guys have any questions, any comments, anything? Do you have any questions?
Tell me about what boundary you would, here, Anna, could you tell me about one of the boundaries that you feel like you're strongest with?
In my head, I'm strong with a lot of boundaries. In actuality, probably not so much. I think the strongest boundary is my emotional boundaries. I lived a lot of life where my emotions didn't matter and they were invalidated, and that's just not something that I'm going to do again. Okay, how I feel is how I feel. How I react to it is something completely different. Okay, so if I feel anger is a cover-up emotion, I'm actually feeling something else. If I'm angry, I may be feeling disrespected. I may be feeling dishonored. I may be feeling devalued. And once I figure out what that feeling is, it is my feeling and I need to address it. But I no longer allow someone to say, don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way.
Oh, Patty Goss is raising her hand on Zoom.
Yes, Miss Patty.
Let me see. Oh, is that better? I apologize, I was muted.
Oh, that's okay. We can hear you now.
What does it look like to start setting boundaries? How do you even go about that
Okay, so
if you haven't set them in the past?
Okay, so it is actually completely normal and expected that when you start to set boundaries, you will feel horrible. I'm not gonna lie to you. You are going to feel like you are doing something wrong, and that's not the case. So what you're doing is you're breaking habits and patterns that you've had for a very, very long time. So I would suggest that you start small. For example, if you need to set a boundary with a neighbor, perhaps, you know, if your neighbor's coming over when you would not like them to, just saying something to the effect of, I really would like to visit with you, but right now is not a good time. Can we finish this? Can we meet at a different time? Or don't even ask. Don't say, can we meet? Say, I would like to meet at a different time. Yes. Yeah, what's your question, Judy? How to talk to a guy without getting rejected. Oh, okay, well, we can't change the feelings of the guy, but what we can do is we can set our boundaries for that. So we can set our boundaries for ourselves about that. So if the gentleman decides that what he says is going to be a rejection towards us, we can change our way of thinking, you know, and we could think, you know what? Thank you that was not the guy for me. You know, and I've had to thank God for a lot of guys, not for me. You know, there's something else coming along, okay? Because it's not you. Everybody has their own preferences. Everybody has their own boundaries, has their own way. And we have to respect his as much as we want them to respect ours. That's tricky though, very tricky. And I think, Miss Patty, you also alluded to the fact that if you haven't set boundaries in a while, where do you start? Again, start small. Just one thing that you'd like to change. Don't tackle the world. Start practicing that one thing and slowly add others to it. Any other questions?
What's a good step I tend to overshare.
Okay.
I like to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell them anything and everything.
Right.
If they ask, I just go with it. I'm having trouble reeling myself in.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be speaking to yourself and your mind about that. Just changing your thought pattern. So what happens is that your belief system changes your attitude, which then changes your actions. So if your belief system starts out with this person is safe, your attitude is going to be, I can share everything. And then that is what your actions is. But you don't want to think the whole world is not safe. But maybe start changing your belief system into, I don't know this person yet. I don't know this person yet. You know, and that's a hard one to tackle, especially if you spent your life oversharing. Okay, but once you learn to do that, it's going to give you some freedom. It really is. And start out with saying, you know, I'm not ready to talk about that. That's a great one.
Oh, but I always am.
Then you need to call your best
I
friend.
feel like
more.
I wish I had.
Maybe journal your answer.
Maybe that'd be it.
Yeah.
Or count to 10 before I answer.
Count to 10, but start practicing that. Start with a friend that you trust and say, hey, I want to practice learning how to set boundaries in this area. And start practicing. I'm not ready to talk about that right now. And once that starts coming freely out of your mouth, it's not going to be so upsetting to yourself in the moment. It's just going to flow. That's a great question, though. So we do have IL specialists here, independent living specialists that would be happy to meet with you one-on-one and practice boundaries. Walk through some of these things with you because they are very, very important and very tricky. But again, just starting small, you know, you put your fence in the order that you deemed was important to you, that you needed to work on. Start there. Put that fence somewhere, put it on your desk, put it on your TV stand, put it somewhere, and you're going to remember that, hey, I need to be working on these boundaries. Everybody has boundaries. Okay, everybody does. From the CEO to a company to the janitor of a company. Okay, to the school bus driver, to a teacher in the classroom. Everybody has boundaries and everybody has a right to them. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Ms. Afton?
I think that was our. I think that was it. I think that was it. Overall, that's the end of our slideshow, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone who showed up, and we do have a survey that was distributed. Once you have a chance, could you fill it out and just bring it back up to me? We still have a couple minutes, so I figured you could spend some time doing that, and those on Zoom, if you could drop your name and your email, your first and last name and email. Other than that, I think those are all of the points that we went over for our slideshow. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes. Patty has a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Who's in charge of the creation thing in July?
That is probably, I think that is Terry and Julie, so our marketing person and actually our accounting team is helping some too, so they'll
Okay,
be,
I've got a question.
yeah,
Could they use some old calendars?
the what calendar, I'm sorry.
Old calendars?
Oh, Miss
Are they
Brooke,
gonna be making something or something?
I think Miss Brooke was gonna reach out to you about that, Miss Patty.
Okay, Brooke will reach out to you, Patty.
Well, tell her not to reach out too far, I might bite. Okay, thank you.
No problem. But yeah, I'm gonna hit stop recording here.